We now present For the Record.
Welcome to For the Record. I'm Will Keneally. It's August, which means we are now a matter of days away from Wisconsin's fall primary election. We'll see a litany of local assembly and Senate candidates take to the ballot for the first time under new district lines. And that's on top of 2 constitutional amendments that voters will vote on. We'll have a full breakdown of those 2 amendments later in the show, plus the impact that unions have on both state and national politics. But first, this coming week, Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris will be back in the Badger State. She's stopping through western Wisconsin with her new VP choice. Now, to better understand the importance of western Wisconsin to the state's politics, we're joined by William Garcia, chair of the 3rd Congressional District Democrats. Thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So I want to first start with that question there. How important is western Wisconsin to the state's politics?
You know, both to the state and federally, the 3rd CD is one of the really flashpoints of this entire election. One of my jobs as a 3rd CD chair is to remind people, you know, we hear a lot that Wisconsin is going to be the kind of the turning point of the presidential election, that the Wisconsin electoral votes are going to be who decides who's going to enter the White House. But when you look at it even a little lower, the 3rd CD is really the only swing district in the entire state. And what we have are the independent swing voters. And here in the 3rd CD, convincing our moderate swing voters that Harris and the rest of the Democrats on the ticket are the people that are going to better represent them in government. That is going to have huge implications. Those swing voters, when we deliver them for Harris, that's going to win Harris, Wisconsin, and that's going to win Harris the presidency. We're also going to do the exact same thing for Baldwin.
How's the mood been among Democratic voters since Harris took over the top of the ticket?
I mean, just pure enthusiasm and excitement. Just here in the 3rd CD, it's been remarkable to see. People have been coming out of the woodwork wanting to volunteer. People who I have never heard from in my kind of 4 years as lacrosse chair have kind of come up and said, I want to knock doors. I want to make phone calls. I want to write postcards. I want to help in any way I can. And from talking to all of the other county chairs in the district, that's happening all over. Just people standing up and saying, hey, we really want to be involved. We're really excited about this, and coming forward. On top of that, I don't like to use money as kind of an indication of enthusiasm, but all over the 3rd CD, our local county parties have been getting donations from people just kind of randomly, like from our websites. And that almost never happens. Usually when we're fundraising and talking to people, you know, we're really making a pitch on why we need this money. And instead, people are just kind of giving us $20, giving us $30 and saying, hey, you're doing great work, keep going. And so we see the enthusiasm on many levels.
So we've been talking a lot about the Veep stakes, who Harris might choose as their possible VP pick. We're recording this a little bit earlier, so things might change by the time this airs Sunday morning, certainly. But is there one candidate that you think might appeal to Wisconsin Democratic voters more than the others?
I mean, I think Tim Walz is a remarkable choice. I mean, I like all of them. I don't want to disparage any of the others, but I love Tim Walz, and I think Tim Walz as a VP would be such a good choice because of their remarkable 2 years that they've had these last 2 years in Minnesota. I mean, if you could put Tim Walz on the ticket and then remind Democrats around the country, if you want to see what happens when Democrats take the presidency, have control of the House, have control of the Senate, then what you need to look at Minnesota and look at this huge laundry list of just amazing accomplishments that Walz has been able to put through. Paid family leave, better funding for schools, free school lunches, better mental health. The list goes on and on and on of the wonderful things that Democrats have been able to accomplish when we have the ability. And that message and that laundry list of accomplishments are what I want to take to the federal level. So I'm very pro and very bullish Tim Walz.
So also happening this fall is a litany of down-ballot races, especially with those new districts being drawn. We'll see a lot of candidates run in new districts, have freshly competitive districts. What are you looking at in terms of the down-ballot races? Is the presidential race shaping some of the enthusiasm down-ballot as well?
I wanted to bring this up with enthusiasm because the enthusiasm here in the third CD, especially, which is where I paid the most attention, the enthusiasm has really gone upward. So much of our enthusiasm, and this is even before Harris got into the race, so much of our enthusiasm, and there was a lot of it, was because of fair maps, was because for the first time in 14 years, Democrats around the 3rd congressional district are going to be able to vote for Democrats and actually potentially win if they get the votes out and do what they need to do. And because it has been so long since we've really had a genuine shot at electing Democrats in some of these in what were heavily gerrymandered districts, a shot at taking back the assembly, because all of these things are happening, enthusiasm has already been very high. We're seeing wonderful races across the state, places where we have never really been able to be competitive, and that we're now very, very competitive. I think about the Wisconsin 96 Assembly, which is kind of South La Crosse County and then Vernon County, with Viroqua as its kind of county seat. And that Vernon County has been represented by a Republican for 75 years, largely thanks to the way it was gerrymandered. And with the new map, I think there's an excellent possibility that we're going to pick up that seat, and that for the first time in 75 years, a Democrat is going to represent Vernon County. And stories like that are happening all over the congressional district. Up in Eau Claire, we've got some really exciting assembly races in places where we have not been able to be competitive before because the maps were just drawn so partisan.
So also, you were talking a little bit earlier about the 3rd congressional district, too. There's a pretty intense primary on the Democratic side, August 15th here. What are we going to make out of that? Do you have a sense of who might emerge?
Oh, no, I am very neutral in party primaries. What's wonderful about the 3rd CD is we have a choice of 3 excellent candidates. So whichever one of our candidates kind of emerges on top, we have a really strong shot at retaking the seat from kind of national embarrassment Derek Van Orden. And I'm really, I'm excited to get the primary finished, so that I think it's been good for people to know who our candidates are and hear about the issues directly from the candidates. They've been, running this primary for a long time, but I'm excited for the primary to be over and to just be able to really focus on how whoever wins is going to be a better representative in Washington than Derek Van Orden.
We also heard a lot of the storyline last time around was that was a district that national Democrats largely kind of gave up on for that race. Do you have a sense of whether there will be renewed investment by national Democrats into this race?
In fact, 2 years ago, and I was very upset with the National Democrats. They did a real stupid thing by pulling out that large ad buy. That ad buy was, I believe, $2.3 million, somewhere around there. And then we came within 2 points of beating Derek Van Orden. And so that money was removed to kind of protect incumbent districts. And it went to some places that lost by a lot more. And so it was a very bad decision on DCCC's side. And I think they know that. They've already actually invested, I think, somewhere around, $2-3 million in ad buys already, and that's before the primary is even over. And so from me talking with them, they realize their mistake, and they're really going to be actively working to support our candidate here in the 3rd.
Well, William Garcia, thanks so much for joining us.
No trouble. Have a great day.
Now, when we come back, everything you need to know about the 2 constitutional amendments that will be on the August ballot. We'll be right back after this.
This portion of News 3 Now is sponsored by Madison Gas and Electric.
Right now with Papa Murphy's, we've got a great deal.
Which means I make more great pizza.
It's not an I thing, Dad. It's a we thing.
Yeah, but I ordered it online. I did the taking. I did the baking.
There's no I in team, honey.
There is an I in pizza.
This summer, get select thin crust pizzas for only $8.99. Papa Murphy's, we make great pizza so you can make the pizza great.
Such a great deal.
$8.99 for a large pizza? That is a great deal.
This is Kathy. She's about to see her dentist. She's afraid. Not because of the drill, but because of the bill. A big bill. But Kathy doesn't need to be afraid, and neither do you, thanks to affordable dental insurance from Physicians Mutual Insurance Company. It's easy to get this coverage. Don't believe me? Call or go online for all the details. You could even have this free information kit. This isn't a discount plan or preventive-only coverage. This is real dental insurance. It helps pay for over 400 procedures. That's a lot. I'm talking cleanings, fillings, crowns, bridges, root canals, even dentures. Bottom line, you'll have help paying for routine care and expensive major work. But if you want deductibles, forget it. There aren't any. No annual maximum either. Plus, you can see any dentist you want. Stop fearing the big bill. Start saving at the dentist. Call now or go to sendinfokit.com.
Physicians Mutual, Physicians Mutual.
Kamala Harris has taken on gang members to get justice for victims, taken on big banks to pay back people they ripped off, taken on drug companies to cap insulin at $35. Now she's running to take on greedy corporations who jack up prices to lower everyday costs for working families. They're spending millions on ads attacking her because she'd be a president who fights for you. FF PAC's responsible for the content of this ad.
Welcome back. In less than 2 weeks, Wisconsinites will head to the polls to vote on 2 constitutional questions. Now, it's legalese that voters will have to parse, but harkens to this fundamental question of how you want the government to spend money coming into Wisconsin. Joining us now is Brenna Gadar, staff attorney with the State Democracy Research Initiative, and thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So I want to break this down for voters. How would you describe these 2 amendments? Parse that legalese for us, for the common person here.
So at the most basic level, these amendments are really aimed at giving the legislature more say in how certain types of federal funding are spent. And so the legislature is already pretty involved in that process for a lot of federal funding, but was not involved for some of the COVID relief funding that came in that gave the governor a lot of discretion in how to spend that money. And this would give them a say if we had sort of similar funding like that in the future.
Would we see any other types of funding, COVID obviously being the biggest example, but kind of going forward post-pandemic, would we see similar funding come into Wisconsin, like infrastructure funds that would get similar treatment that the governor could spend unilaterally here?
It's really hard to say exactly what types of federal funds will be impacted by this. It actually won't apply retroactively to the pandemic funding, but would apply to similar sort of broad, undesignated funding that comes in the future, which was some of the COVID relief funding. But it's hard to know what will count as designated or undesignated, and that's something that might end up getting determined by the Wisconsin Supreme Court down the road of what funding would need to go through the legislative review process.
Gotcha. We've also looked at, certainly within the last couple of years, with the lame duck session heading into the Evers administration, questions about the separation of powers. If these 2 constitutional amendments were to pass, would you be able to describe how that might change the separation of powers for Wisconsin government?
Yes, so there's already the way that sort of state budgeting works is the legislature gets to have a large role in setting the state budget and drafting that. And the executive branch, the governor, gets to decide whether to accept that, also has a lot of input on the front end with drafting, and then can partially veto appropriations bills, budget bills as well. And so that is sort of the process for the state. The federal funding breakdown is very different. And the governor has had a lot of discretion and power to accept unanticipated federal funds that come in, like the COVID relief funding, like the ARPA funding. And this would take that away from the governor to some degree and insert the legislature into that process. So it would really shift that balance in regards to federal funding going forward.
So if we were to see these 2 amendments come to pass, what would that look like for some of the money going forward? What would that legislative process look like?
So the legislative process isn't set out yet. The amendment allows the legislature to determine that process if the amendment passes. And so on one end, it could be a joint resolution where funding decisions have to get passed by a majority vote in both the Senate and the House. The other option would be going to a committee for review or some sort of passive review process. There are really a lot of different things that the legislature could do, and we don't really know what that process will look like until the amendments pass.
And so, assuming that the legislature would have to create their own rules in this regard, I'm assuming, too, that would probably be subject to more court challenges going forward?
Potentially, as long as the legislature acts sort of within the bounds of the amendment actually would give the legislature quite a bit of room to decide what system it could have in place, but that would have to be in line with the rest of the Constitution as well.
And so this is just one of many amendments that we've seen on Wisconsinites' ballots within the last couple of years. Why are we seeing Wisconsin go to so many amendments?
It's something that you see when there is a divided government. So the legislature here had proposed a statute that would have given it more control over the ARPA funding specifically. And that was vetoed by Governor Evers, And so the constitutional amendment process, it does not have to go to the governor for approval. Both houses of the legislature instead need to pass it in 2 successive sessions, and then it goes to voters, which is what's happening this August. And so it's a way to go directly to the people for a say in what our structure should be, instead of having the governor and legislature both need to sign off on something.
Wonderful. Well, we'll have to see the results come August 14th. Brenda Goddard, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Now, when we come back, we explore the power that unions have in our current political landscape. We'll be right back after this.
MG&E, building your community energy company for the future through the power of working together. Committed to cleaner, more sustainable energy, driven by innovation, fostered by shared values. Visit MGE2050.com.
These were my great-grandpappy's glasses. And now they're yours, son.
Why can't I just get my own?
No, these have at least a few 100 years left in them.
I think the kid needs his own. Get 2 pairs of glasses and a free eye exam for $79, all same day.
Yeah, I want my own.
Stanton Optical. Easy's our thing.
Need inspiration? Shop Pick and Save. For over 30,000 mouth-watering choices, plus savings like digital coupons worth over $600 each week and up to $2 off per gallon at the pump. Pick and Save is worth it every time. Pick and Save, fresh for everyone.
Dad, are you certain this is gonna work?
Nothing to it.
Are you for imprint certain?
Certainty matters, like the certainty of 4imprint, your home for high-quality promotional gear, including exclusive items and brands they love. Printed perfectly and guaranteed to arrive on time. To wow your clients, nail your next event, or inspire your team, check out 4imprint.com.
4imprint, for certain.
Experience the Channel 3000 News app today. Enjoy a website-like layout and swipe through articles without returning to the home screen. Download the Channel 3000 News app, powered by News 3 Now.
MG&E, building your community energy company for the future through the power of working together. Committed to cleaner, more sustainable energy, driven by innovation, fostered by shared values. Visit MGE2050.com.
The American people aren't stupid. They know the system is broken.
Welcome back. During 2011, we saw here in Wisconsin the power in sheer numbers that unions have in politics. Now fast forward to this July, and we have the president of the Teamsters headline a major national political event, speaking at the RNC.
We all know how Washington is run. Working people have no chance of winning this fight. That's why I'm here today, because I refuse to keep doing the same things my predecessors did. Today, the Teamsters are here to say we are not beholden to anyone or any party.
Now, for more on the role unions play in politics is Don Taylor, professor with the School for Workers here at the UW-Madison. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So first I want to start with that event in July with the Teamsters president. Were we surprised to see him speak at the RNC like he did?
I think folks were generally surprised because when he was elected, he was seen as a more progressive candidate and a progressive voice for the Teamsters Union. While on the other hand, I don't think people were completely surprised because the Teamsters have been a bit of a political renegade in the labor movement over the years. They endorsed Nixon, they endorsed Reagan, they endorsed Bush the First. So this isn't completely out of their pattern. I think what we're seeing, even with O'Brien speaking at the RNC, is the Republicans are making an effort to speak to working people in Wisconsin and in the country. Of course, the folks on the other side of it would say that it's not sincere, but you know, recent decades have created a situation where, for example, when Clinton was seen as the figurehead that pushed through NAFTA, and there's the general deindustrialization of states like Wisconsin and across the northern United States, folks' livelihoods have been severely undermined by that process, and they haven't seen the Democrats as doing much about it. So they then turn to the Republicans, who, particularly under Trump, have been speaking the language of bringing manufacturing back, protecting American jobs, and I think that has been attractive. And I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but the union vote for Trump, I think, was high enough to a level that it alarmed most union leaders.
I want to harken back to like where we see unions come from initially. It seems like they might come from that kind of 1920s progressivism era. Do we see unions before that, or is that kind of the origin of them?
Well, there were unions before that, but they had no legal framework within which to operate and negotiate contracts. And that really came about in the 1930s with Roosevelt and the New Deal, National Labor Relations Act in 1935. And it was really in the 1930s and the Roosevelt administration where unions went from being a more or less hands-off politics approach to more of a getting involved in party politics and really aligning themselves with the Democratic Party, starting with Roosevelt.
I was going to ask, too, do we see them wholly in a specific party, or do they represent kind of a broad spectrum of political thought here?
Well, the unions as organizations, at least since the 1930s, have largely supported Democrats. Of course, many union members are Republicans or libertarians or socialists or many other things. So it's not a complete monolithic political thing, but when you look at the levels of endorsements, for example, at the national level or even the state level, it's been largely Democratic. And I think that most folks would perhaps correctly view the unions as an electoral accompaniment to the Democratic Party for the most part. However, they do endorse Republicans when those Republicans are seen as pro-labor, for example, and that can often happen at the congressional level or the state level.
We're also talking a little bit in the break, the role that some of these right-to-work legislation, especially here in Wisconsin, has had an impact, or Act 10, again, here in Wisconsin. If we see something like the Dane County judge's decision in Act 10 holds, does that kind of pave the way for, within the next couple of years here, much more union activism, especially here in Wisconsin?
I very possibly, yes. You know, when you look, particularly with Act 10, which I think has had a much greater impact on the labor movement in Wisconsin than Right to Work has. If you look at the political question and unions' ability to influence politics, the public sector unions in Wisconsin have had their political capacity greatly diminished by Act 10, which some argue was the point to begin with. If the labor movement is seen as generally an appendage, not my word, but perhaps the critics' word, of the Democratic Party, then if you weaken the unions, you weaken the Democratic Party. And you know, the teachers' unions, the state employees' union have far fewer resources now to influence political outcomes in Wisconsin than they did before Act 10. So if Act 10 gets reversed in whole or in part, and unions are able to rebuild some of the strength they had before, then that will obviously have some impact. I guess how much will depend on how much that door is reopened to them in terms of what they are legally able to develop.
Well, a lot to keep on the lookout for. Don Taylor, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back after this.
Hanson's knows that your home is a place of comfort and protection. That's why our durable, energy-efficient, and weather-resistant windows, roofing, siding, and gutters, as well as our bathtubs and showers, are guaranteed. With 35 years experience and thousands of five-star reviews, we're your trusted home improvement expert. Get 50% off installation or enjoy no interest, no payments for 1 year.
Call 1-800-HANSONS. Get it done.
This right here is confidence in a bottle.
It makes me feel so much more confident than I've ever felt.
They are some of the hottest videos on social media. Those videos claiming to instantly get rid of bags under your eyes. Annette Figueroa is here to tell us why she says this one is for real.
This one is for real, and I'm so excited. We even have a video, and all he uses is a small amount on a clean, dry face. And what it does is it tightens and lifts the appearance of bags underneath your eyes. And I did this to my father. We were at home, so we applied it to his under eye bags, and let me tell you, we were so excited. In under 10 minutes, they visibly disappeared from view, and now it is literally part of both of our daily routines. And not only does it work on the bags, it works on the appearance of crow's feet, fine lines, and wrinkles.
At our $14.95 price, it's the best way to try Plexiderm and see it work after your first application. Your solution is at plexidermtrial.com or call the number on your screen.
Gruber Law Offices, Gruber Law Offices, Gruber Law Offices. I'm attorney David Gruber.
For over 35 years, Gruber Law Offices has had one goal: to provide top-notch legal services to this incredible community. We appreciate and value our clients. We've helped tens of thousands of injured people get the care they needed and results they deserve.
Gruber Law Offices.
One call, one call, one call, one call, one call, that's all.
Welcome back. This week marks the start of the State Fair in Milwaukee, and this week Governor Evers proclaimed August 10th Cream Puff Day in Wisconsin. Now, it's in commemoration of the 100th anniversary of the original Cream Puff. Now, back in 1924, then Governor John Blaine requested the State Fair create the original Cream Puff to showcase the state's dairy industry. Now, no, we don't have any on set here. We ate them all back in the newsroom. Now, that does it for us this week. I'm Will Keneally. Have a great rest of your weekend.
This has been For the Record.